All right. Let me see if, yep, okay, I think we're okay. Got a good level there. Cooperative Legacy Project interview number 18, October 13th, 2005. We're visiting with John Quillin, longtime Cooperative and Farmers Union activist in Lyman County. John, where and when were you born?
Well, I was born in Kennebec. Well, actually, I was born out on the house on the farm.
Okay, where was that from here?
Oh, it's about 3 miles northeast of Kennebec.
Okay. Where was your family from originally?
My dad was from Kimball, and my mother came from Scotland, South Dakota.
Okay, and before that, way back, where were they from?
My folks came from Ireland. My dad's folks came from Ireland, and I got that history. And mother's folks came from Scotland.
Okay. And when did they settle here in Lyman County?
Well, Dad in Lyman County didn't come in here until 1916. And he lived over in Kimball, so he wasn't coming very far. And he came over here. And then, of course, he was drafted then for World War I. And he left then, and then he came back here.
Did he serve overseas then?
No. He served as a cook at Fort Dodge, Iowa most of the time. A lot of them didn't get overseas then, but a lot did.
Visited with Ben Radcliffe, and he talked about some of the folks in that area having the flu in 1918. Did they have any experience with that over in Iowa?
Well, not that I know of. Dad didn't have any trouble, so maybe he was a cook. But there, in our book, Quillin History that we got, well, I got a little article in there about Dad. He was stationed in Fort Dodge, Iowa, and the commander of his company, they had got a bunch of apples, and they just set the barrels out. They came in barrels, and they set the barrels out, and soldiers could take the choice, eat them. I mean, but they were spoiling, so he gave the job to Dad to go around to each barrel and picked out the spoiled ones. And Dad said, "Well, why don't you make apple pie out of them?" They'd go for that. And the commander said, "Well, if you know how to make apple pie," and Dad said, "Yeah, I know." So he said, "Okay, go to it." And so then he was a cook for the company after that. So. And he got rid of the apples then.
You have one brother. Do you have any other brothers and sisters?
I got 2 sisters.
Where are they at?
Presho and Reliance.
Okay.
So we're pretty close here.
Would you like to talk a little bit about your dad?
Yeah, he was really thought the farmer union was just a thing, and now when we were just little kids, and I'm not too sure I think he did, but I wouldn't want to guarantee it, belonged to the farm union out there, the local. Hardscrabble local is what they called it. And but I wouldn't, after we came back from the service, and I and George got out 10 days apart, so we formed a partnership, and that's what Dad wanted to be sure we joined the Legion, which he's another one, and the farm union. So we joined the farm union right away then, and they used to hold local meetings out on the different farms, and then I'm not for sure what year it was. Maybe we could find that, but I was elected president of the local union, and I don't think I attended I'm pretty sure. I never attended a state convention, though, until 19 or 18, 19. About 1940. Yeah.
Okay. How about your mother? What sort of a person was she?
Well, she wasn't as active as that, but she was a school teacher before, and then when they moved to Kennebec, she worked for her uncle was a depot agent down here then, worked for the Milwaukee Road, and she always thought that the Milwaukee Road was just a thing. She thought instead of farming, we should go work for the Milwaukee Railroad. And but that, of course, didn't pan out that way. So, but she was pretty active in other organizations around there. Had a busy bee club, they called it, out north, and she was pretty active in that.
What are some of your earliest memories out on the farm?
The good or the bad?
Both.
Well, when I was 9 years old, while I was driving the tractor for the combine that Dad had, and the old John Deere D had a hand clutch, just as they did later on, and I didn't have power enough then to push that thing in or out. So now why I remember that clutch was a solid handle about a foot long, is all it was, with a knob on the end. So Dad cut the knob off and got a piece of pipe and stuck that on, and then I could run the clutch. Before I couldn't.
Just needed a longer lever.
yeah, and before I couldn't do that. So, and I ran the tractor, drove the tractor then most of the time that first year.
Were you one of the earlier groups or families out here that had a combine?
Yeah.
As opposed to thrashing with a thrashing machine and so on?
Yeah, he got that combine in I would say 30 or 31.
That'd be fairly early.
Yeah.
For most areas in South Dakota. Yeah.
And he got the tractor in 29, and he got the combine in 31. In 32, we had a good crop, but it wasn't worth a hoot. And I don't remember the price exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so then came 33, and we didn't get any crop to harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought the combine on the installment plan, and he lost it. As did pretty everybody else around. So it's kind of a common occurrence. Because 32, 33, I don't think there was any crop whatsoever. I don't know as we got it planted in 34 either.
So what was the Dust Bowl like around here?
Hmm?
What was the Dust Bowl like around here, the 30s?
Well, pretty bad, really. We had rented a quarter and 80, I think it is a quarter. Dad did. And the guy told us, the neighbor said, well, I think there's a grain drill buried in that dirt. So we went over where he thought it was and started digging. By God, the grain drill was there. So Dad dug it out, and that's the grain drill he used then. The people that owned the farm before just moved to Idaho or someplace and just left it.
They had just abandoned their stuff and took off.
Yeah. So it was bad. We lived up north here then, further 6 miles north and 2 miles east from where from Kennebec now, not where I was born at all. And the field north of that, or west of us, belonged to other people, and it blew real bad. And they had to blade the dirt off the road so that we could drive up the road to get to town. It's just so dang loose that. And I remember we got silage shipped in from Nebraska, baled in bales to feed the cows. And we could, I don't know, they'd furnish the feed for so many cows, but you couldn't be raising a whole herd, and just to keep the cows going.
Did a lot of people around here lose their farms?
Yeah. This was a rented farm that we had, so in that sense it wasn't that bad. And but after then, getting ahead of myself, after I and George both went to the service, why, Dad tried to buy the farm and was going to have an FHA loan that he could get. And I don't remember now what happened, but he was buying the place for $7 an acre, and didn't make the deal then. So, but there was a lot, and when we came out the service, why, had a good friend there, Henry Bowe. He was a abstractor, and he owned a lot of land around here, other people's, and he said, I got a quarter section up here that ain't been farmed for the last 2 years. They've just been letting it grow to volunteer winter wheat and harvesting that, and that's all. So it's a mess, and it'll be sold, and I can get it for you for $10 an acre. But we didn't have $10 an acre. So he bought it. He said he bought it. The first year he gave us the crop just for cleaning up the ground. And the next year we planted oats, I think, and we got more oats off of it to pay his $10 that he paid for the land back. So if we could have had the money, we could have done it ourselves, but we didn't have the money. And we kept farming that for 30, 40 years after that.
Mm-hmm.
He still owned it, but...
Did you ever buy it?
No. It came up for sale, but we didn't want it. It was about 5-6 miles from our place we owned.
Mm-hmm.
So we wasn't particular.
How big was your home place there at that time?
Well, actually, we just put together it all the time.
Yeah.
Dad didn't own any land then at all. And so we, neighbors south of us, had a quarter, and we bought him when we came out of the service. Made a deal for it, paid it on monthly. And then A.C. Miller, maybe you've heard of him. He was a, what did they call him? Lieutenant Governor for a while. And he was pretty prominent around here. And he had a quarter south of that he sold us on monthly or yearly payments. Just kept on adding to it. We ended up with 1,800 acres altogether.
Okay. Was that fairly common at that time around here? Were the farms larger here in Lyman County than they were further east already then?
Yeah.
Although people probably settled smaller acreages and lost them.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
They, when it began here, originally the homestead day, why every quarter had a place on it or a owner of it. Mm-hmm. And then they kept putting them together. And
they used to have a deal where you could settle extra land if you planted a shelter belt. Did they do that down here? And
not very much. This wasn't
pretty hard to get trees to grow.
Wasn't a very tree country. So,
let's back up a little bit. Where did you go to school? Did you go to country school out there?
Yeah. Luckily, it was only what we called 80 rods east of our house. So we walked all the time to country school.
Okay.
And then we went I went to high school here in Kennebec and graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm. What was school like back in those days out here?
Well, in fact, I taught it once out there, but I don't know how the kids got along, but they did. But we had good teachers generally.
How many kids were there in your country school?
Well, there was, let's see, I wonder where that picture is. Oh, I got that. That picture of the country school. Did you find it?
I think so.
Yeah. And there was 14 kids then.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't find 14 in the whole goddamn township.
Yeah.
Not just kids, but grown people and everybody else. And that's what most of the schools had was. We'll deviate it a little bit here.
Okay.
This is probably the
1932. We're looking
29.
At, okay, 29. We're looking at what this is, the minutes or the
This
treasurer's records or
is financial records.
financial
this is.
records of the
Oh,
local?
yeah,
Yeah.
the local. See, they would buy stuff and then they'd sell it to the individual.
Okay.
And see, oyster and crackers, $17. You wouldn't get very many. Is that the minute book? That goes back to 22 then.
21 and 22.
That's just about as early as you're going to find here in South Dakota. I think it was only about 5 or 6 years before that.
Let's see that.
They're Patrick Rigney, William Gorman, Ben Halverson, R.W. McGee, and J.D. McGee, Estella McGee, and what's that, T.U. Williams, H.J. Johnson, Louis Walker, Harry Catlin, Albert Andrew, Lawrence Jandrew, it must be.
Dad must have not belonged then.
And Emily Jelly. Well, we weren't up there then.
Oh, no. No.
Dad was still working in town, probably.
Yeah, this goes back quite a ways.
I don't know how far it goes up.
Called order or President W. D. Heston. So.
Yeah.
23 members answering roll call, so that. And the state president was J.W. Batchelor.
Mm-hmm.
I never did. Bernie Johnson brung it here and left it, and I never did look into this. Wonder when this started. '21.
Well, I'm going to stop the recorder here for a moment.
Oh.
All right, we are recording again. We've been looking at some of the record books of Hardscrabble Local, which was north of town here, or northeast.
North of town.
Okay. And I think before we started doing this,
I was just wondering if we had a number on that hard screen.
238.
238.
Okay. We were, I think, talking about schools. What were the grade school? You taught a little while, and then you were in high school here in Kennebec.
Yeah.
How many students were there here then in high school?
Well, we had the biggest class that graduated, and we had 19 that graduated. and we had one of the largest classes graduated. So
But you had about 23 when you started.
yeah, we had 23 when it started, but they
Were there a lot of, particularly a lot of farm boys that dropped out of school and didn't finish to get their degree?
well, not necessarily boys and the girls. So.
Boys and girls both, huh? Okay. Okay, I know that was been
Or
the
else
case in some other areas.
Moved to some other area, yeah.
When you were young out on the farm, is that what you wanted to do? Did you want to farm? Or did you have, as you thought about what you might do in your life?
Well, I don't know. I had spent 6 months in the CCCs.
Okay.
And,
You want to talk about that a little bit?
well,
Yeah, do it. Where did you go?
I was out to Ormond Dam, Fruitdale. And we worked on the irrigation project from Ormond Dam. I went on. Really what I got credit for was concrete work. We was concreting the ditches so they wouldn't lose all the water. And so that's what I got the thing. And then I took a tractor course. I thought maybe I might be construction work, but didn't pan out that way. And then the war came, and
How many, were there a lot of people from around here that went out in CCC and worked?
yeah,
in that?
there was quite a few that went in there. Then there was I and another guy from my class both went out there, and we had other ones that had went in the CCs. And generally, a lot of times, the farm boys went in the winter time, and then the summertime, or they'd quit and go out. You signed up for 6 months at a time, so.
Was it kind of a military atmosphere as far
Yeah,
as,
it was
as
military,
organization, anyhow?
Yeah, and we used to have some, not that I was that much involved, but difficulties with the regular Army. They were getting $21 a month, and we was getting $30 a month. And but 22 of that had to go be sent home, so we had $8 to live the month in. And
Did they provide your meals there at the camp?
yeah,
So
very good. And I guess it's a good meal. I eventually took over as potato peeler. When it got real cold out that winter, why, I said, that wasn't for me to be out there in that goddamn cold weather. And position came open that I could be, well, vegetable man is what they called it, to get the vegetables ready for the cooks to cook. And so I had that job to finish it. But you could, in them days, if you had any of that $8 left, why, get to the back end of the month, a guy wanted to go to town and wanted to borrow you $1 or $2, why, you could get $1 or $2 interest. That'd be just for a week until we got our pay.
okay. Now, was there like other things like card playing that went on amongst
Yeah.
these guys?
Well, you weren't supposed to have a car, and the sergeant in charge of our barracks did have a car and had a girlfriend too from out there, and he would sometimes run short on money at the end of the month, so I usually could loan him that. That's when I decided not to smoke, because I see that's what was everybody was broke for, was to get their smokes to the last day. So I didn't smoke and loaned my money out. Shoot, I came home with stuff that they would let me hold, and then if they didn't pay me, why, I kept it.
Well, you were kind of like a pawn shop out there.
Yeah. I know pair of shoe skates I got, and no other stuff like that.
Okay. One of the other programs that they did in a lot of areas, including our area in North Dakota, was a WPA. Did they do projects right here in Lyman County too?
Oh, yeah.
So did a lot of farmers work on those?
Yeah, yeah. I never worked on a WPA. During when I went to high school, I worked on the NYA, which is another branch of that. And working for the school, mostly like janitor work for the school. And then the government paid you so much, you could earn so much a month, and I don't remember what it was now. And I thought of something else when you mentioned.
When they were working on WPA, they could only work until they earned so much money. And then they'd have to quit and let somebody else work.
Okay.
The one family we knew, the Hermansons, well, that's what they did. There was the son and his dad, until they both could work so long, and then it was up to somebody else. And that's what built the Barry Dam, which Kennebec got the water out of for a long time.
And also built the gymnasium up here.
That was true in a lot of rural communities, I think.
Yeah.
Those projects were involved in civic improvements. Getting back to Farmers Union, do you remember when your family first became involved?
I see there.
Almost when you moved out here?
Where my name in that? What is that?
That's a different one.
Donald Casman.
I don't think he was much, Dad wasn't much involved in it until, I don't know, maybe the 30s probably.
Mm-hmm.
No. The Farmers Union used to buy oysters, and they'd have an oyster stew every year, and I can remember that, and I wasn't that all old either.
This is a meeting, and I don't know. There's a motion made by Joe Quillin, second by Bob Arthur.
See, that'd been after the war, during the war.
Yeah.
During the war, probably.
During the war.
Because Bob wasn't here before that.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. When did the local cooperatives get started around here? Was it kind of the Farmers Union activity and the cooperatives kind of
Harry
synonymous and worked
Casman was
together?
really the thing, and Dad was a pusher of it too. And they were getting awful poor service from the elevator here. And so they had called in a guy from, and I don't remember which one it was, from GTA. Harry had. He'd attended a GTA meeting in Minneapolis and got a little background for that. And then came here and talked to Dad and Dutch Ruman. You maybe had heard of him, and maybe not. And who was the other ones?
One of the Woosters,
Woosters, yeah.
and Bert Busey.
And so they decided to try to buy the elevator here. And I don't remember where they got the money to do that now. Must have went out and got so much from each farmer. And they bought the old wooden house here and started in business. And then they used an old, and I wouldn't say old, manager that wasn't really in favor of Farmer Union, and that didn't work out. Then I think they had a couple managers before that. And then they got Reuben Heen, which was in FSA or something like that, government program. And they got him then to manage it. And it started.
Mm-hmm. About what time, what year was that they...
I'd say 48.
48?
I think I got a book on that if I can find it right quick.
And then of course there was the oil company over at Reliance, and was that earlier or later?
That was a little later. No, earlier, I think. That started in 44, I believe. Yep. And I wasn't a part of that then. And then after we came back from service, why we started buying it at the oil company, and has been buying it all the time since there.
Mm-hmm. Now they have a branch over in Presho. Now, was that there earlier on, or was that later?
They're later. And then they got a branch over in Draper now, too.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other co-ops in the county earlier on?
No.
Was real earlier. Union Equity Exchange.
Oh, okay. Creamery?
No, it was
okay.
Elevator.
Elevator, okay.
I think it was Equity Exchange, I think is what they called it.
Okay, and did that go under in the 30s, maybe?
Yeah, it must have.
Yeah,
I never remembered it,
Okay.
really.
And you both were in the military during World War II. When did you enlist or get drafted?
No, I enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I enlisted in the aviation cadets. Was going to be a big hotshot pilot.
What did you want to fly, a fighter or a bomber?
Well,
An airplane.
it never got that far. So I had went to pre-flight school and that, then started pilot training in Missouri, and I kept getting airsick all the time. So they said, no, we don't want you. So I got out of that, and then they sent me out to, or I put in for her to go to armament school in Denver, Colorado.
What was that? The armaments? Is that artillery or
Guns on the plane.
on the planes?
plane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on the plane. And bombs and that. And they put me through, or I got through armament school all right. And then they said everybody that went through armament school had to go to gunnery school. So then they went through gunnery school, and the same thing happened when I started flying while I was getting airsick again. They took me out of that too. So then I put in for mechanic out in California, and became a mechanic on the C-54, which was a big plane them days, but 4-engine, which a lot of the airlines used them. And so I didn't. I'd been in the Army 4 years then, and I was sent overseas and finally then.
Okay, where'd they send you to?
Guam and Okinawa. Was supposed to be there for the invasion of Okinawa, but of course, when they dropped the bomb, well, that was the end of that, which was lucky. So.
And how soon was it before you all came home from over there?
Well, it was the about the middle of February. Do you remember?
8th or 10th, I think.
Yeah.
I think I come home the 12th.
Where had you been, George?
I was in the Navy on the North Atlantic,
Oh,
running convoy.
exciting.
Well, I don't know that exciting. I've got this book on the elevator.
Oh, yeah.
Now there should be one up at the state office, I think. I wouldn't guarantee it either.
Haven't seen it.
They started it in 1947. That's when Fred Manger was hired as a manager at $175 a month. And they were, I guess, trying to purchase the original elevators, but they weren't selling it until they found out the Farm Union was going to build, one way or the other they were going to have an elevator. Well, then they sold them. And that's where the money comes from. That's local people.
A lot of local people who are willing to
Yeah, they were willing to put up their
put
money.
up some money. And we talked today about people putting up $50, but there's some substantial personal investments here at a time when that money meant something.
Yeah, it was worth $50.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, any other questions?
Yeah, well, when did you first become involved as a Farmers Union member when you got back? Did you ever decide about the general time frame that you were president here, or out of that local? Or 50s?
I would say around the 50s. That must be somebody. Around the 50s.
Okay. Was there a lot of activity in the county yet in the 1950s?
Well, I know there's a lot of activities on the local
Yeah.
level
Yeah, so it was more local activity back in those days than county.
than county, because I don't ever remember going to a county meeting or anything like that.
Mhm.
That could have. But
I'm going to shut this off for just a second. Okay. So, and I guess we talked a little bit about the relationship between the Farmers Union here, and I would assume that most, if not all, of those people that invested to start the elevator were also Farmers Union members. In
I
the
think
county.
so. There might have been a couple that wasn't, but
One thing I asked Dean Rasmussen about from his early days as a co-op manager before he went to work for the regional was the idea that some folks had that cooperatives were un-American or something. Were there any people like that around in Lyman County, or were they
I don't
pretty much
think
all
so.
convinced of the value?
they were all pretty well convinced of the value.
Yeah.
There might have been some, but I didn't hear them.
So, when were you first elected to the co-op board, or which board was that? Was that Kennebec or Reliance?
No, that's the Reliance
That was
Board.
Reliance. When were you elected to that?
That's a good question, because I don't know. And I don't know how I'd find out either.
Yeah.
We've got the plaque out here,
How many years were you on the
25.
25? Okay.
About that. I think we got a plaque out here for 24 years.
Mm-hmm. And you were also a member here, obviously, at Kennebec as well.
Yeah.
And probably, what, you got a rural electric out here, too?
Yeah, we belong to that, but was never, as far as the,
This probably pretty well explains that. He was on the
Okay.
board for 30 years.
30 years in
Retired in
1991. Okay,
91.
1961 then, huh? Okay,
yep.
61 to 91. And what positions were you in on the board? You were
Secretary, printer all
secretary, printer all the time. What did the secretary do on the board at Reliance?
the time. Everything.
Everything, huh?
Yeah, keep the minutes was the main thing, and really we didn't. We met every month without fail. So, and we took up the business then, and it was all done under the guidance of the board. So, if the manager wanted more pay or anything, well, that was brung up and voted on. And
What sort of issues did the board deal with during those years?
well, building or enlarging the operation. There was quite a lot of argument when we bought into Presho up here, and then the same thing when it came up to getting Draper. And that's when Oris and I both resigned from the board. Then we both had 25 years. I think Oris came on a year after I did, or a year before I did, one of the two. And we didn't think that they should take on Draper, but majority did. So, and then they were changing it. We had 7 members on the board, so they were going to, 2 of them had to be out so that they could put 2 more on the board from Draper. So Oris and I both resigned then. And
had there been a co-op at Draper before, or
Yeah.
was that new?
but it wasn't making money,
Okay.
so we had to take it over. And Senex was pushing it real hard that we took it over, and I thought then that Senex was taking too big a part in it. So
How about the local leadership here? Was it fairly good? You obviously had a disagreement there with regard to whether or not Draper should be added, but generally, was it
generally, it
pretty
was
good
pretty
operation over
Yeah.
the years?
Yeah, generally, I don't think it had too much problem. But, of course, we'd been on it. Both Horace and I had been on there 25 years. Well, that's about time to hang up the shingle. So.
You want to talk about some of the folks around here that you worked with over the years? How about Harry Caslin?
Yeah,
What sort of a guy was Harry?
well, he was very much farmer union, and he took me to the first, what did they call it? The
GTA?
GTA, not the GTA, the Senex convention.
No.
It was called Farm Union Oil Company then, I think. Convention, before they took Senex. Of course, that is a big argument when they changed their name to Senex. And,
That was about 1972 or something like
yeah.
that.
And in one year, and I remember this, and it was a meeting out to Montana, Billings, in Montana. And they, Senex in, as far as the state, and I won't say that's their name then, but had a rule in their book that they said that the managers would be on the would constitute the let's see what that was now, the election board, and they didn't belong really because they were an employee. So I and another guy from Sioux Falls got our heads together and decided at Billings we going to get up and make a motion that it no longer be the managers, that it be a member that signed up to be a delegate, to be on the election board. And it passed 70 to 30% or something, and pretty good. The next meeting was in Minneapolis, or St. Paul, and they came up and they still had the managers on the board. So we got up again and said, we made a motion and it passed at the Billings meeting that the managers couldn't fill that job. And the gal, that secretary, and I forgot her name, looked it up and she said, yeah, that's my fault. I forgot and left that paragraph out. So they had to rush around and get regular delegates on the board, and the manager didn't get on the board again. So it proved that the individual did have power as long as he made a motion and the majority there followed it. Why?
Some of the other folks around here, Oris Authier, you mentioned Oris. I knew Oris too, but do you want to talk about Oris a little bit?
Well, we was both, and we attended pretty near every convention together. And Oris and Dorothy usually went, and so any meeting, why, we usually went together. And I know they had taken, the Senex had taken a group down to the oil refinery in Manhattan, Kansas. No, it ain't Manhattan.
McPherson, isn't it?
McPherson, Kansas, yeah. And Oris and I went together on that. So we just had a tendency, being we both in the same county, of going together.
They were out more toward the western end of the county there, weren't they?
Yeah, they were in Vivian, but I think probably Oris was more outspoken than I was. He liked to talk.
And Dorothy was kind of involved in the education program, and then was on the
In
board.
fact, she was a member of the board of directors of the South Dakota Farmer Union for a while.
What about some other people? You mentioned there was a guy by the name of Ruman.
Dutch Ruman?
Yeah, you want to talk about him a little bit?
Well, he's really a little bit before my time. He was one of the incorporators of the elevator, and in fact, I think maybe he was on the board of the oil company. I believe he was the one. And
I think so.
he got me to take his place when I went on the board of the oil company. So he just was getting along in age too, and thought it was a time to retire off it.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other people you can think of that were really active around here? Any managers that stand out? You mentioned, was it Reuben Hine? Heen, okay, excuse me.
I don't rightly know of any that I could think of here. That there was undoubtedly some, but
Are there some folks from the regional co-ops that you remember working with when you were on the board over at Reliance?
let's see.
Field representatives.
Now you make me remember numbers.
I remember one, I don't really know what else he called Emo Lorix. Of course, you know as well as I do, if you could hear Emo talk, well, you knew it was him.
Yeah. Yep.
That's he was involved more in GTA, and I guess I never knew any of them from the oil company.
Okay. Do you think it's, you mentioned going to Senex conventions, do you think it's important for people from local cooperatives to be active and attend those regional meetings?
I think so, yeah. Think I'd went to all the Senex meetings except one or two. So when after I got on the board, and a lot of times Harry Casson was on the board then, and he went too. But some of the other ones didn't take as active part in that meeting.
But they had an equity in the regional, but they
Yeah.
just didn't go and represent their
Yeah.
partial ownership. You've been active in both the cooperatives and the farmers union. Do you think that relationship is still important?
Yeah. Yep. They're that's what's having the trouble now. Even the managers of the, or even the members of the board of directors of the elevator here, which is still pretty strong farm union, don't belong to the farm union.
And what about cooperative education? Do you think that's important? And,
that's
is there
growing
enough
pretty
of
good
it?
here, but now,
Yeah.
for a long time it wasn't. So I don't know. That's going to come up this convention, state convention this year. Might have a little heated discussion. And this Janice Shelsky, you know her.
I know Janice.
Yeah. So she's done a lot to bring it forward, and the local people here too, even though they don't belong to the farm union, has helped a lot. I think they had one of the biggest local camps this year than around the state.
And
that's what it takes. It takes
Yeah.
the younger kids, younger people to.
Yeah, you've also served. You mentioned your being a president, at least at one time, of a local. Most of those locals kind of faded away as the number of people out in the countryside decreased.
Yeah.
Did you also have a county position? And once the locals were you on the county board of Farmers Union?
Well, I
or the
wouldn't want to
district?
guarantee it, but I think I was county president for a while.
Okay, and you're a district officer too.
Yeah.
Haven't you?
I'm still district vice president.
Okay.
They're thinking of retiring me, but
what about Farmers Union leadership? We talked about the co-ops beyond. I've had a chance to work for 4 presidents. You probably go back before that even to
Yeah.
Opsol and Fosheim and some of those
Yeah.
folks. Do any of them stand out for you? That
oh yeah, I've always thought Dallas Tongsauger was one of the better presidents we've had, but that's my opinion probably. But he went on to other things, so. And I've got along with most of them all right anyway, so.
you have attended both state and national Farmers Union conventions. Was that a fun experience for you? You went to how many? You went to
20.
Like 20 in a row or something. Yeah.
Well, no,
Or almost.
no, because one year I was all set to go, and then I had a doctor's appointment in Sioux Falls and went down there and seen him, and he said, "We ain't gonna let you go. We're gonna give you a heart bypass." So, and that's the year that Lee Swenson was elected national president.
Oh, you missed that one. That was a fun
I
one.
missed out on that. Yeah, but the rest of the ones that went, I know Loris and Dorothy both went then, and a lot of other ones from South Dakota. And so I missed out on that. And then,
You missed out on one other one when I was in the hospital.
yeah.
You
And
rode,
otherwise, I attended 20 of them.
you rode out to Salt Lake City with me, didn't you?
Yeah.
One time. You're about 5 years ago or something like that. Okay.
And then the last one I went to in Anaheim, why the local paid my way. So.
You been a delegate?
I was, but I wasn't the last. Lately, I was before, and then I was delegate once because the regular delegate couldn't make it, and I was elected as alternate, so I filled in for her.
How did you enjoy the policy process at the national convention? It's a little different than state convention.
Yeah.
It gets pretty intense with the variety around the country.
Yeah, yeah. I got to know a lot of pretty prominent farm union people from other areas, and I thought that was a good deal. And you could meet about the same ones every year. So.
You've also been on some fly-ins to Washington?
Yep. I think twice I was there on fly-ins. I don't think I ever took a bus, so come to think of it. And I know it was quite an experience in Washington to meet with. We had to go around and meet with the different representatives and that so forth. We had and they assigned us to different ones, and I got the representative from North Carolina. And so when we visited him, you know, in his office, and actually got to visit him. And
that doesn't happen all the time.
No, and that's there's a lot of Quillins down in North Carolina, and he knew some of the Quillins, but they ain't very close relation. They are a relation, but not very doggone close. Them down there came to the United States in 1600, and the ones, our bunch of Quillins up here didn't come here until whenever that potato famine was in Ireland. 1859, I think. So.
Okay. Do you think that sort of activity, going to national conventions, fly-ins, and so on, is important for farm and ranch people? That
I think so.
Maybe a lot of people maybe don't do that kind of thing, but should think about it?
Yeah. It seems to me that they came away impressed with what we had to say. Even though, as you said, a lot of times we didn't get to talk to the senator or representative personally. We got to talk to the representative of them, and they seemed like the way they voted might have had an effect on them. So.
I think actually hearing from grassroots people is an enhancement over just hearing from the paid lobbyists.
Yeah.
Challenges facing farmers union and other rural organizations and cooperatives have changed over the years. What seems like the biggest change to you over the years that you've been out here on the farm and involved in the organization and the co-ops?
Well, it's I think one of the biggest things that's, and maybe it ain't hurting the co-ops, is unification now. They're getting either bigger co-ops or else somebody's buying out the co-ops. And I kind of look on that as a bad thing. That I know at the time they done it, I was one that is arguing against changing the name to Cenex. That they should have left it at Farm Union Oil Co-op. And but again, maybe I was old-fashioned then. So,
yeah.
But I think that's what the thing is now. Even going clear down to the credit associations, co-op credit association. It looks to me like they should hold that, and I guess they did hold it in co-op hands instead of letting some other financial thing take them over.
You think part of the problem perhaps is that some of the younger people who are making the decisions don't know the background of the co-op?
Of the co-op
you know.
view, or whatever you want to call that.
I would say, like even the board of directors of the elevator, they never sold grain to any other elevator. I mean, it was a co-op all the time, so they don't quite realize why. Now, I see in this old book that they voted to have the delegate vote for J.W. Bassler for state president. I hadn't heard of him.
He was president from 1918 to 28. I'm sort of a
Exactly
history
where it is.
buff.
This is 27, I think.
That would have been about the end of the time
Yeah.
for him. We talked about the organization and the cooperatives. What about your community? Has that changed over the years? How has that changed?
Yeah, we used to have 365, and now we're down to 260 here. And then we're holding that a little better than some other communities. And I think that the community as a whole is doing pretty good. The new telephone office was built here, and last year they built a new firehouse, and so it's. And we're going to get a new post office if we ever get a fire lit underneath them.
They have to get some federal money to do that?
Well, the federal's going to build it.
They're going to build it, yeah.
Yep. And I don't know what's holding them up, really. They got the land and everything picked out and that, so.
If there was some younger person around here who wanted to get active in something, what kind of advice would you give them today? Have you had a chance to give people advice, or do they ask you?
No, you don't ask me.
But the answer should be jump in with both feet.
We got that example here, the guy, young guy that got the telephone company here. He's he got pressure now too, and then he's active and not get a little far, internet and all that. So he's just active in everything. In fact, that's where he was when you came.
Mm-hmm.
We was up looking at a storage unit to store our extra stuff we got from over from the sale, and
Okay.
and they got that too.
Uh-huh. All right.
So
Well, you've sold out your stuff out on the farm now?
Yeah.
Did you sell? Have you sold the land or just?
yeah, we had sold some of the land.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We had sold a section of land,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's got a what do you call it? To buy the rest of it. Can't think of the name. It's what it.
Mm-hmm. I think I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it.
Yeah, that he can buy the rest of the land,
Mm-hmm.
and right now he's renting it. So.
Okay. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future? Do you think things are going to be all right around here, get better, or get worse?
Well, I think so.
Stay
I
about the same.
think probably it's what's hurting us the last few years is the weather, and you can't do anything about that. But the farmers here are taking a hold of the new methods of farming real well, better than us old timers. And pretty near everything is no-till now, and so they're taking a hold of that real fast. So I thought we had all old machinery, 8-row, which is pretty small, and really it all sold. So I think the weather is, and you can't do anything about that. So.
Yep. And people debate it, but you're right. There's not much to be done about it.
Yeah, and with this no-till, they are conserving moisture pretty good, so that is helping it. And the grain yields have been going up. We thought if we used to plant corn, or you'd be good if you got 40 bushels to an acre. And now, all dryland corn is getting around 100. So.
That's pretty good out here
Yeah.
in the west of the river.
A couple of years ago, some of it got up to 140 bushels to an acre.
That's something that not too many years ago you wouldn't have seen in the southeastern part of the state, where they had plenty of rain.
Where it's out here now, and there's an awful lot of corn planted last year. But we drove up Precious for dinner today and drove around some of them cornfields, and they just didn't have moisture enough this year to make a good crop. So the milo, yeah, it's a dryland crop. So I think you're going to see more of a switch to milo next year because of that dryland crop. And they don't know what it's going to be yet this year because we ain't had enough moisture here to really do it. So.
Nobody has ever tried beans out here.
No. Well, they did try.
They did try. Okay.
Try. That don't work very
A
good.
little too dry.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did, 30, 40 years ago we tried soybeans.
Oh, okay.
But we tried them 2 years and just got our seed back.
This is a kind of a winter wheat area around here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wheat?
Yeah.
Had they ever tried spring wheat around here?
Oh, yeah.
It was always pretty much winter wheat.
Only if the winter wheat fails,
Okay.
or something else happens that you don't get it planted or something.
Okay.
It's winter wheat and milo country for a long time.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, John and George Quillin, thank you for your participation in the Cooperative Legacy Project.